Coming up, the 49 victims of the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando were honored today on the 5th anniversary. And lagging vaccination rates across the U.S. could leave some areas vulnerable to potential outbreaks in new COVID-19 variants. Plus, world leaders held talks on the second day of the G7 summit. Valley News Live at 6 starts now. Church bells ring in Orlando today in memory of the 49 people who were shot and killed 5 years ago at a nightclub. The somber memorial was held at the First Orlando Church. The name of each victim was read. 5 years ago, the gunman killed 49 people at the Pulse nightclub during a 3-hour standoff with police. At the time, it was the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history. U.S. senators passed a bill earlier this week designating the site of the former nightclub as a national memorial. President Joe Biden is expected to sign it into law. And 1 person was killed and 9 others wounded in a mass shooting early this morning on Chicago's South Side. According to the Chicago Sun-Times, police say 2 males approached a group of people standing in a parking lot at 2 in the morning and opened fire. They say a 29-year-old woman was shot in the leg and abdomen. She later died at a local hospital. The other 9 victims were listed in good to fair condition. No arrests have been made. And 14 people were shot in downtown Austin early this morning, and at least 2 are in critical condition. One of the suspects is still at large. Police were called to the scene after hearing reports of shots fired. According to reports, there were so many people in the area, it became nearly impossible to get emergency vehicles close enough to treat victims. Officers were then forced to transport some of the victims to the hospital in their cruisers. Authorities say they don't know what sparked the incident. Investigators say they've identified 2 male suspects. 1 arrest has been made. And it's been pretty cool over the last couple of days, but it's been comfortable for us compared to the heat wave we had last week. Summer, what can you share?
Yeah, exactly. These 80s that we've had across much of the valley, definitely, at least in my opinion, better than the 90s. Although we have been breezy today, here's a live look at our Grand Forks Home of Economy Skycam network, and you can see those flags have been flying. Temperatures, though, mostly in the 80s. We're at 84 in Fargo, 82 Grand Forks, 80 in Thief River Falls and Bemidji, 82 in Fergus Falls, and 81 in Devil's Lake as well. Now check out some of these wind gusts from today. It has been a breezy day, gustiest across northern Minnesota, and winds will continue to diminish for a very comfortable evening here across the valley. A great night maybe for some Red Hawks baseball. That first pitch was just minutes ago. Temperatures near 80 degrees and will stay comfortable through the 7th inning. Nishay, coming up in just a little bit, I'll let you know about another breezy day for tomorrow and how long these more comfortable temperatures are expected to last.
All right, well, thank you so much, Summer. Okay, more than 200 Utah firefighters battling the so-called bear fire have stopped it at a few miles outside the small town of Helper. But the wildfire is only just 5% contained. It has already burned more than 8,000 acres. Pre-evacuation orders have been issued to people living near the edge of the fire. A big part of the problem is low humidity and conditions being so dry. With people looking for some fun in the sun, pools are a great place to go, but people need to remember safety when they head to the pool. With COVID restrictions lifting and pools starting to fill up, water safety is very important for enjoying a fun day in the sun. Guards at South High are providing some tips. They include remembering to wear sunscreen, bring water to stay hydrated. Also, it is suggested to know your limits when it comes to swimming.
Look, listen, and listen. Right? So I mean, you're going to want to know your surroundings if you're going to be going into a new foreign environment, and then you're going to want to listen to your either group you're with, and then specifically the pool staff and the lifeguards around you. So we'll do listen twice, just because you can never go wrong with that.
It is also very important to always listen to the lifeguard on duty while at an area pool. And more cities and summer attractions are reopening and dropping COVID-19 restrictions, but lagging vaccination rates across the U.S. could leave some areas vulnerable to potential outbreaks and new COVID-19 variants.
Restrictions continue being lifted across the United States as more cities and states start fully reopening. On Friday, Chicago's mayor announced the Windy City has dropped pandemic-era regulations, no more mask mandate or social distancing requirements, even offering some free tickets to its famed Lollapalooza music festival to vaccinated fans.
And now it's time for you to get up, get out of the house this summer and fully and safely and enjoy the events of the best city on the planet, our beloved city of Chicago.
This week, other major cities like Seattle and Denver crossed the Biden administration's goal of having 70% of the adult population vaccinated with at least one dose by the 4th of July. New York State, on the cusp of reaching that goal, it's a threshold the state's Governor Andrew Cuomo has said will trigger the end to all of the state's COVID-19 restrictions. New Yorkers can also plan on the return of the famed Macy's fireworks for Independence Day, according to New York Mayor Bill de Blasio. But vaccination rates in certain states remain relatively low, including in states like Alabama, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Wyoming. While adults and children over 12 continue receiving vaccines across the United States, nearly 62% of that population has at least one dose so far, and experts are split on how urgently children under the age of 12 should receive their vaccine.
They are still at risk of hospitalization and they are still at risk of having adverse side effects. Kids have been isolated for a large proportion of time, but as school starts back in the fall and they're in classrooms, they're in group activities and school sports, it's going to get colder, so people are going to start moving inside. Their risk is going to increase if they're not vaccinated.
Another concern among experts, the mental health of adolescents during the pandemic. Emergency room visits for suicide attempts rose an alarming 51% among teenage girls during the pandemic. That's according to a new study by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention released on Friday. But there remain signs of optimism in the global fight against the pandemic. The Food and Drug Administration has authorized the use of 2 batches of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine that were produced at a troubled Baltimore lab, concluding they are safe to use. Polo Sandoval, CNN, New York.
World leaders held talks on the second day of the G7 summit in southwestern England today. The leaders of the UK, the United States, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, Japan, along with the heads of the European Union and United Nations, met to discuss the coronavirus pandemic, national security, and other issues. The leaders, whose 3-day summit is scheduled to end tomorrow, are expected to commit to a new plan called the Carbis Bay Declaration to put a stop to future pandemics within the first 100 days. And thousands of protesters marched in England today to push world leaders to act on climate change. The colorful protest took place in Cornwall as leaders of the 7 most industrialized countries are meeting over a 3-day group of the 7 summit. Climate change is among the top issues on the agenda of the summit, but activists say politicians have been delivering only empty promises on climate action. Meanwhile, a flight from Los Angeles to Atlanta had to be diverted to Oklahoma City Friday night after a passenger became unruly. In this video, you can see several passengers on top of a man in the aisle. Passengers said he was walking up and down the aisle and eventually got onto the plane's PA system. The man told passengers things were going to get turbulent and they needed to put on their oxygen masks. When the man started making his way to the door, other passengers stepped up to restrain him. The plane landed at Will Rogers World Airport in Oklahoma City, and police were at the gate waiting to arrest and take the man into custody. And according to a statement released by the Federal Aviation Administration today, there has been nearly 3,000 reports of unruly behavior by passengers since the start of the year. The agency says about 2,200 reports were about passengers refusing to comply with the federal face mask mandate. The FAA has identified potential violations in 446 cases and have initiated enforcement action in 42 of those cases. Later on Valley News Live at 6. New COVID-19 cases may be dropping, but as more Americans begin traveling, new concerns arise.
And a slightly breezy forecast tonight in Fargo, but Temperatures will be fairly comfortable, and we are looking storm-free across the entire Red River Valley. Grand Forks also very comfortable evening setting up, a little cooler, but I'll have your hour-by-hour forecast for what to expect the rest of tonight and your Sunday right after this.
This is Valley News Live.